All right, everybody. Misty Williams here from Healing Rosie, and I'm thrilled about today's interview. If you are in the Healing Rosie Facebook group, you know that Epstein-Barr is probably one of the hottest things we talk about. I feel like there's several posts a week that come in about Epstein-Barr. Those posts end up with sometimes 20, 30, 40 comments on them because, as you guys know from my own story, Epstein-Barr was an issue for me for many years, and I didn't know it. And I've been sharing that with you guys. Make sure you're getting checked for Epstein-Barr. So what's happened since last October when I launched Healing Rosie is many women in our community are running the 4 labs to get checked for Epstein-Barr. They're finding out they're having it. And then it's like, oh my God, what do I do? So Dr. Kasia Kines is with us. We have a couple of other Facebook Lives from her. If you're in the Healing Rosie Facebook group, you can click on videos and look for the other interviews. If you really want to go deeper with this conversation, then we'll probably be able to get today. If you're not watching this on Facebook, but maybe you're watching it on YouTube, it's in our YouTube channel too. So you can go find the interviews that I've done with Dr. Kasia Kines and learn more about what you can do if you find out you have Epstein-Barr. So welcome, welcome.
Hello, Rosies, and hello, Misty. I'm so excited to be back here.
I'm so excited too.
Yes, we have some interesting topics that we've been just brainstorming for today. I'm super excited. And by the way, thank you for helping me reach 1 million people with a message of hope.
Yes. Well, thank you for being a messenger, because I remember when I first thought I had Epstein-Barr, it was back in 2012. The previous year, I had been diagnosed with thyroid nodules. And of course, the doctors told me, we don't know why you have thyroid nodules, Misty, but you can have a surgeon remove your thyroid. And of course, I was like, at that point, no more surgeries for me. I need to find out what's going wrong. And when I started researching, everything kept pointing back to Epstein-Barr. So I went to my doctor at the time and said, hey, I need to get tested for Epstein-Barr. I have these nodules. I think I might be infected. He ran 2 tests, came back and said, oh, these tests just show you have a previous infection. Yes, little did I know there's actually 4 tests.
Yes.
And I feel frustrated when I look back, because if a patient is going to a doctor saying, I think I might be infected, will you test? Why wouldn't you run the 2 tests that show if there's a current infection? Like that just...
They don't know.
Blew my mind. So
they don't know.
Maybe they don't. I mean, he was an integrated medicine doctor, so I don't give him as much of a pass.
Well, here's the deal. I had to plow through a lot of medical research to figure out what to test, why, what's the evidence, what the efficacy is, and how to read it.
Yes.
And doctors don't have the time. They just go by the old school, whatever they were taught at school.
Whatever they were taught.
Yeah.
So if you're active in our community, you know that I have the Healing Rosie lab tracker that has the 4 tests that Dr. Kasia Kines is going to talk about today. So if you want to download that, just go to healingrosie.com/lab tracker. It's free. Mm-hmm. You can get all the optimizing labs, functional ranges, the whole 9, just to support you so you have an idea of what's available. So why don't we just start here right at the top. Kasia, why don't you tell us the 4 labs?
The 4 labs. Let's start with VCA IgG and VCA IgM. Expect VCA IgG to be elevated. And if it's triple digits, or it says more than 600 or more than 700, so it doesn't give you the number, that's more chronic. VCA IgM is expected to be negative. It's rare that it's positive. It will flag up in the initial infection, maybe first time. There's very few individuals that I've seen it elevated every time. So there are irregularities, but that's the big one.
Okay.
So these are the 2. Then you have EBNA IgG. That's also going to be elevated long-term, just like VCA IgG. Both of these will probably be elevated for your lifetime, depending how high they are, depending on your story. They're not enough to say what's going on. That's why Misty was saying, 2, what do you do with 2 markers? Not much. Then the most important is early antigen EA IgG or EA-D, whichever you can get hold of. Early antigen is the super important one, because that is re-triggered when you have reactivation. But you need to test right away when you feel like the truck run you over, like when you really hit the bottom. Mm-hmm. You don't want to wait a few weeks and go and test then, because early antigen will start normalizing. You'll miss it, and that's when the doctor says, okay, this is normal. You only have those 2 elevated, VCA IgG and EBNA IgG. These are past infection, so this has no bearings on your health. So early
Right.
antigen is really important to catch. There's some complications, you know, some people have complications, so if they don't fit this mold. EBVhelp.com is a free website that I have a website page with lab interpretation and different scenarios that people can read. The book has a whole chapter on it, so you can find your trajectory. Like you can literally look at your lab and read different scenarios and kind of analyze, read that on that website. I put it there for everyone. So you can then even copy and paste or show that website page to your doctor and have a conversation together. This is all evidence-based. This is not my opinion. So they can't really argue with it. They are just not updated. So we have those resources there, and for all the Rosies too.
That's awesome. So I personally, just for everyone, for context, you know, my big thing is like, how do we advocate for ourselves and figure some of this stuff out? I have learned more from case studies than anything else. Because as a patient, obviously I haven't had all this training, right? But when I hear about what someone went through, what their markers look like, what they tried, what their symptoms were like, seeing the different protocols, I have been able to see patterns that have really supported me in advocating for myself so that I feel competent and confident about pursuing a particular path. So I would encourage everyone to avail yourself. If you think Epstein-Barr is something that you're dealing with, go check out the website and just take a look at these case studies so that you've got some perspective that'll really support you as you make decisions for where you're going to go with your treatment. Okay. So eventually I had all 4 tests run, and of course I was positive for Epstein-Barr, active infection. The number one thing that I noticed, and this is a pattern, if people have an active Epstein-Barr infection, the number one thing that I have experienced and other people experience too is fatigue. Now, there is a whole laundry list of symptoms. But when I did my first Epstein-Barr protocol, which the one that I did initially was the dysbiosis homeopathic protocol, the energy that I felt was like, holy crap, like it's the boiling the frog slowly. I didn't even realize how run down I was because I think it was so chronic over time. But I noticed a significant improvement in my energy. So if you're dealing with a lot of fatigue, if that's one of the symptoms that is really prevalent for you, I would really encourage you to get the Epstein-Barr labs run. If you have trouble getting your doctor to run labs, you can run these labs yourself. Inside the lab tracker, I have a link over to Ulta Labs, which is a direct-to-consumer lab company where you can go in and have your blood drawn and get your labs done yourself. So you do not have to work with a practitioner to get your labs done if you're not in a place where you've built out your team and you have someone that you can just call and say, order this for me. So that's just something to keep in mind. If this is important to you, you can take power into your own hands and see what's there. Okay.
So I actually want to tell you something. You're going to be excited. I talked to the lab and I'm asking them, they're investigating. There's the 5th marker that very few labs provide. Dr. Vojdani is one of the few. He's personal lab. He's an immunologist for those of the Rosies that don't know him. But I learned a lot about the EBV from him as well, about testing. So there's EBNA-IgM, and that's also reactivation, Carb reactivation. So I am actually having conversation with Alta Lab to see if they can identify and add it, because if we do, I've had one case when we ran, it was a combination of SIBO, celiac, underweight, severe food intolerances, you name it, she had it. And we ran Dr. Vojdani's lab with this 5th marker added, and this is the only one she showed positive. So any traditional lab with 4 markers would have missed it completely.
Right.
And so that completely changes, the protocols of what you do. So there's possibility. So if you guys, or ladies rather, can talk to your doctor and see if they can find also this 5th one, EBNA, IgM, that might be possibility. And then, of course, if Alta Lab gets it on board, we're going to have a very special panel. Then you'll be the first to know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely keep me posted on that. Yeah. Okay, so Epstein-Barr. I want to have a different conversation than what we've had in the past. So for all of you, if you have Hashimotos, I did an excellent Ask Me Anything with Dr. Kasia Kines. talking about
That's
Epstein-Barr and its relationship to Hashimoto's.
That's big.
One thing that stands out from that interview, this is just a little teaser for you, is that if you've ever found yourself diagnosed with Hashis after pregnancy, there is a direct correlation between Epstein-Barr and Hashimoto's that you definitely want to hear about. In that interview, she gives a lot of excellent advice. Epstein-Barr is very often tied to hypothyroidism.
Yes.
And we talk about that in previous interviews too.
Yes.
So if you're hypothyroid and you're feeling lots of the fatigue and you go on thyroid supplements and maybe you feel a little better, but you're still kind of feeling that heaviness or cloud, definitely get tested for Epstein-Barr. Okay, what I want to do with this interview today is a little different direction than we've done in the past, because we've really dove into like, what is Epstein-Barr and what are the labs and what are some treatment protocols and why do we get it? And, we've really connected a lot of dots there. What I want to talk about today is, let's talk about Epstein-Barr and what it's a symptom of. So here's just a little frame from my own situation. I had a gut test done and my SIgA was low in my gut.
Classic.
Right? That's an immune marker. For those of you that don't know, shows how well your immune system basically is functioning, and mine is low. So my immune system is functioning low. And when that test came back, it was like an immediate aha of like, oh, this is why, in part, I'm sure there's other things too, but this is a big contributor to my Epstein-Barr flaring so much. I can get flares really easily with Epstein-Barr. So there's a lot of things that once you know that you have Epstein-Barr, so there's women in our community who are like chronically treating their Epstein-Barr. I take certain supplements every day. They're kind of identified to, I have Epstein-Barr and I have to constantly treat the Epstein-Barr. What I would like to do is blow this open a little bit more and let's talk about the underlying things that contribute to chronic Epstein-Barr flares. So that's for you.
Okay, I'll take
talk
it.
to us about that.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's a big concern. So Secretory IgA, first of all, is the immune cell. It's like a director of your cups. So it's right there on the lining of your gut, right there. And it tells all the other immune cells what to do. So when Secretory IgA is low, I can tell you, I do the stool test all the time with my community. And in EBV community, 99.9% have low Secretory IgA. People get more infections and the infections linger longer, not just EBV, all kinds of infections. And so that's, if the Rosies are thinking, well, yeah, I always get sick, I pick up the colds, that's Secretory IgA. So the big picture is, and this is hard for us because we always think, okay, you have a parasite, anti-parasitic, you have a fungal, antifungal, you have, mold, remove mold, right? But you can't do it with EBV. And how the heck does it play into our life? Okay, so we all have it, 95% of global population. So the research community is looking for a global vaccination. However, that's that's where they're going. However, the point is, why are 95% of the global population not sick with that chronic fatigue? And by the way, as Misty was explaining, the EBV fatigue is different from fatigue. Like you can be tired, but the EBV fatigue is when you literally cannot get off your sofa and walk to the kitchen. That's the type of fatigue that is very hard to explain to people unless you've had it. And so like spouses don't get it. People don't understand it. It is so enormous. It's like you made of lead. So, distinguishing even, like you said, so the big picture is that there is a certain threshold at which the virus starts being threatened, starts being aggressive, starts activating or reactivating. One of the things that trigger it is other infections. It's very well studied. You may have strep, you may have H. pylori, you may have different bacteria, different pathogens, and suddenly your EBV comes. A big issue for me as a nutritionist is seeing how depleted of micronutrients we are because of the food industry, because of the food quality, because of the changes in the soil. We're not getting the micronutrients we need. They're essential. And then the toxicity, external toxicity, environmental toxicity, furthermore depletes of those micronutrients. A prime example is selenium. It's not in the soil anymore. the soil is depleted. So it's not in the produce. And then you have jet fuel, where we all breathing from the air or drinking from the water because it's seeping in the from the soil, and that blocks the selenium. There's or iodine, and selenium is needed for thyroid, so you have more protection for detoxification. And selenium helps prevent cancer, but selenium is one of the biggest hitters for Epstein-Barr and herpes viruses. That stalls the replication right there. So if we don't, and we have studies showing that when your nutritional status starts to go down, your herpes viruses, your EBV virus becomes more virulent, meaning more aggressive. The same thing happens with toxic load. Let's say I see constantly Wi-Fi technology, EMF, if there's a lot of exposure, that can tip the person over. And you can start having buzzing in the ear, vestibular nerve is infected with the virus, it starts acting out, you get more reinfections. And you would think, well, why do I have reinfection? Because I have the Wi-Fi. It's possible that the virus feels threatened by the radiation because it's dangerous. So It's starting to protect itself and make more toxins. So it's like when you start looking at that, what is the number one trigger in people with chronic EBV of this reinfection? We call it reactivation. When you flat on your face and the truck run you over again, like you feel bad, but then you really crash, right? What is the number one reason for women to feel this way? Stress. Something tipping you over, divorce, moving, something when you have a pile of stuff already going on, there's one stressor, like the last drop.
Mm-hmm. The straw that broke the camel's back.
The straw, yeah. The chemicals of stress, like cortisol or adrenaline, we know that these, they have to somehow feed the virus because it really stimulates its reactivation. And that's why you mentioned, postpartum depression, postpartum, when women have thyroid problem and they don't know it, but oftentimes that thyroid is triggered by EBV. There is, when you give birth, I understand that the change in hormones is so fast, so dramatic, and so big that can be a breeding ground for EBV to reactivate. The woman is compromised. She just gave birth. The nutrients are depleted. It's like she hasn't slept. She's exhausted. It's like a prime situation for a physical body to be open to reactivation, and thyroid is often the organ of choice. The virus can go into different organ systems. It depends where it travels, but for women, thyroid seems to be the one. I don't know if it has anything to do with the throat chakra and with women not speaking their truth. I don't know what it is.
It's a stretch to at least consider that, right?
Well, listen to this. Talking about stories, I went to a haircut. I went to a new organic salon where I live. I want to support local business. It's like, okay, I'll pay extra, but I want to support them. They're doing a good job, without chemicals. And I pick randomly, but I always use my intuition. So I picked this one lady. I signed up online. I come in. She's cutting my hair. Very sweet young woman with 2 kids. You know what happened during that never mind the cut. We ended up crying together. She had thyroid nodules. She was devastated. She was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And we were sitting there and I was looking. I actually went right into did I go into my website or I Googled PubMed and looked at her particular type of thyroid cancer. It's right there. It's EBV. It's caused by EBV. I was last year. She was not recovering. They messed it up. They had to go and do surgery again. But they toasted her thyroid, so she no longer had thyroid. She's a young mom. She's not on this income as a hairdresser. There's no support for her. She was devastated because she still was asking for answers. She was not getting help. And now I went again, and instead I got a message that she was going on the surgeries again. And so the ladies had to create a FundMe page for her to help her pay the bills. It is such a tragedy. So I needed it. Well, this is not the end of the story. I asked them for a referral for another place because they were booked. So I went by the referral, and again, I scheduled with a lady. She cuts my hair. She had a similar story. And I said, how are you doing? Are you taking, I'm on thyroid medication now. Are you thriving with it? No. And she's beautiful. They're both beautiful. You wouldn't know what they're going through. And she says, I'm still in pain. No, I barely make it. But she looks glamorous. You wouldn't know. So we had that long conversation. It's like, everywhere I go,
It's an epidemic.
working women, but she's on medication too. And she is not doing well. It's like, and so
And you know, I just to chime in here, one of the things I see in the Healing Rosa community a lot, first of all, it's very challenging if you're working in conventional medicine to get a proper hypothyroid diagnosis, and then to get support for it. And a lot of women have issues with their doctor wanting to give them just a little crumb of thyroid, right? And because they don't ramp their dose to get to the point where, you know, it's really giving the body the relief that it needs, they have a hard time feeling better on the medicine. And there's this block, and I see it even in our community where we're talking about empowerment all the time. These women are like, but my doctor said I can only do, my doctor's not letting me. And what I want to say to every woman is that you have to disconnect from what your doctor thinks is best for you. You've got to get educated for yourself, and you've got to start listening to your own gut. It doesn't even matter what I think. It doesn't even matter what Kasia thinks. We are so disconnected from our own intuition. Yeah. And I'm watching women in our community they'll come in, what should I do? What does your gut tell you? My gut tells me, and they go with their gut and they start seeing results that they don't see when we're constantly kind of checking out of figuring this out for ourselves. Our bodies know. So
well,
I just say to anyone who's like, I'm on thyroid meds and I'm not feeling better too. You might need more. But the most important thing you can do is really get educated about this and start listening to your own intuition about what's right for you.
Yeah, the big picture is that if you have a faucet that is leaking and the water is spilling from the basin onto the floor, if that's the virus, so if you're mopping the floor to get rid of the water, that's your medication for thyroid. If EBV is causing the damage, then the medication only can take care of some symptoms, but it's not turning off the damage. But with the EBV in particular, if you work with medication alone, you're going to have a honeymoon period, but then it's a corticosteroid in a way. It's a steroid medication in a way. Steroids are not the best policy with chronic EBV, if the virus is what's driving it. But it can be combination, can be, the iodine issue or selenium issue, minerals like iron, zinc issue, mercury issue. There's toxins, there's lack of nutrients, and then possibly the virus. Like nodules oftentimes may be viral, that definitely. But I think what you said, what's important is that we as women look up to other people as authorities, and we are disconnected. We are disconnected from the bodies because sometimes when I look at people and look at how they walk, like I look at their body language and I feel they're so disconnected, they're so in their head. But when you actually learn simple principles, and sometimes it takes a few sessions with a nutritionist. What does it mean? What should I expect to feel after a meal? What should I expect? What should my poop look like? How long should I sleep? When should I, we don't have basic knowledge about what the body is supposed to do. Yeah. So if you don't know that, you don't know what feedback to listen to. Or if you don't know that, of course you're disempowered. And I'm a nutritionist, so I teach very simple things. And over the years, people would tell me, these are such simple principles. Why don't they teach it at school? I said, I don't know. But the point is that we delegate so much to experts, but the experts don't know you.
That's right.
Like you say, your gut feeling is their gut feeling. You have it for a reason. You have to investigate and pursue the direction. And also, if the only relationship with the doctor that works is the doctor that is on your team, the best doctors in the world are those, I may not agree with you, but let me check into it. Let's investigate. I don't know about this. Let me look. But the worst thing that the doctor said, no, it's a no. Why? Because I know so. How do you know? Because I know so. Yeah. Yes, it's more of an ego stance. Like, I am the doctor, I'm the authority. But the best doctors are your team members, and it's a beautiful relationship. So if you find somebody like that who doesn't know much about EBV, it doesn't matter. Show them. In my program, in the first module, I give the students, I call it validation information. Here's what I want you to give to your doctors, so they, so you can have a conversation, and your family members. So it's not in your head, so it's not your opinion. So you're not pushing an agenda or a concept on somebody. It's actually validated. So this is real, because people don't have that. But with the women and health in general, I think if you can just, we invest in technology, we invest in new things, new phones, but if you just slow down and learn a little bit of basic physiology, like, what does it mean? Do I have to have 2 stools a day? Really? I've never had 2 stools. Doctor didn't tell me that was constipation. It's like, doctors don't know.
Wow.
So
Let's
yeah.
the stool thing. Let's kind of get back to this root cause thing. So one of the things that is root cause is obviously gut dysbiosis. My case is low SIgA. I'm sure there's other things in the gut that could be contributing, maybe H. pylori or some other things.
Yes. Absolutely.
Let's talk about what else do we need to think about if we've got chronic Epstein-Barr flares and we're like, okay, we can mitigate the virus at one level, get our antibodies down or get us past the flare up. What do we need to be looking for deeper?
Number one is baseline. So, and it's an analogy, but it's just, I'm so frustrated. We need to start building houses with brick, honestly. And this is a really building houses with brick, solid houses, so we don't have so much toxic mold as well. But
toxic mold is a big one.
The toxic mold is a big one, literally and figuratively. There are things that will tip your immune system and will cause the virus to be really resistant and really hard. So for example, when you look at studies and when you follow the research and when you create protocols based on that research, you're invincible. It's really like you can't the virus has nowhere to go. It will respond unless it's not EBV or you have these complications like mycotoxicity. For some people, it's not a problem. For some people, it's a huge problem, especially if you already have secretory IgA low. Your other immune functions may be low too. You may have predisposition to be really, really taxed by toxic mold too. Then co-infections. You may have a really bad H. pylori, and that goes oftentimes with EBV. Heavy metals. You may not know that you have heavy metals, and that's going to cloud the situation as well. And Wi-Fi technology and EMF. It's actually, it interferes on so many levels. So that these big guns are when the immune system goes on fire and is completely confused, fighting. And then you can apply EBV protocol, of course, but you have to tackle the big ones. And so unfortunately, we have a lot of these environmental toxins at us, and that makes it harder. The virus itself is pretty straightforward. But number one, it's like the biggest thing is, what do you have within your control? You can improve the quality of your air, the quality of your water. You can improve quality and decrease the amount of pesticides, glyphosate in your food. In your water too, it's in your water. And then another thing is make sure that you meet the basic needs. So I would say add omega-3, add B-complex, good B-complex methylated, because you're oozing B vitamins when you're under stress. So you're not even meeting the needs, you're losing them. They're lost in stress. Minerals like calcium, magnesium are lost in stress. So just, basic nutrients, even just antioxidants, something with antioxidants, omega-3, B vitamins, simple things like that, minerals, just basic foundation that can actually ward off EBV to a certain degree without getting into antivirals. I mean, selenium would be a big one for women because of the thyroid, because of the liver, because of the detox, because of the depletion, and because of the toxins that attack the thyroid already externally. So that selenium is really, really beneficial. Easy fix. So, zooming out and zooming in. And then the big picture is, how toxic is your life in general? How do you feel you're living your life the way? How is your voice heard as a woman? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing, or do you have toxic environment, toxic spouses, toxic relatives, toxic family, sometimes toxic house, toxic job, a lot of people, and a lot of trauma in the past. Majority of EBV community I work with, they have a lot of trauma. They've been abused, or they traumatized, they've had a lot of hardships.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing is, and that's a relatively new one for me as well, the big thing is celiac. And there's a new twist on it, because we have studies from last year that actually EBV can trigger celiac in people with the gene. So you may have been perfectly fine before Epstein-Barr virus, and now you can tolerate even a smidget of gluten, or maybe you don't realize it. If you have chronically high levels of EBV in your labs, and you're still not gluten-free, and you feel crappy, you might want to consider, because that's a big deal now. You know, it's a big risk as well. So just being aware of these big things makes you more empowered.
Yeah.
Because the virus is pretty predictable. It's so predictable.
So one of the things I would love for you to share, because this comes up a lot, like whenever, and I remember how I was when I would hear someone say something like, you know, you might have gut issues going on, you might have toxic mold exposure, you might have heavy metal toxicity. As a patient, my next question is, how do I know if I have that? What would you recommend? Are there tests that you would recommend people take?
I would say,
are there assumptions you think people should make about their exposure?
Well, I may say something unpopular because I am a nutritionist, a clinical nutritionist. And I want to elevate my field, because sometimes if you just sit down with a good experienced nutritionist one time or twice, they can help you clean up the food resources. They can map things out, so you don't have to think. You have the support, you have you have some tricks. We have so many tricks of the field, in our profession. So it's like, yes, you can spend a lot of money on testing too. If you are one of those people, black and white, you can do hair analysis for heavy metals. That's a kind of long-term exposure, so you'll see what you've been exposed to. You can do urine test to check for mycotoxicity, so the nasty, hurtful molds, types of molds that are typically in water damage, or you may not even see them in your home, but you may have them. This is when you persist having problems, and it's mystery. That's a big one. So you could do that. There are labs for that. There's one lab. Can I name the lab?
Yeah, totally. Please.
Great Smokies, is it? Great Smokies has the mycotoxin. I think it's Great Smokies. No, I haven't.
I have Great Plains in my head, but I'm not sure if that's right.
I have a brain fart right now. I can't even remember my own. Great Plains Labs, I think it is. They have a good one. You can do blood test and urine test combined for heavy metals, like Quicksilver Diagnostic has that. I think they also do hair. Yeah, they have a combination with hair as well. So you can do a triple. Spend a couple of hundreds of dollars. So you could do that. What I find is that when people start looking at their environment, the thing is, our environment is not normal, okay? It's not normal. It's not normal. The food is so contaminated. When people are very sensitive, when you eat out, it's not normal what's in the food. It's not just the food we're eating a lot of chemicals, all the foods. The water and the air are heavily polluted. So we are constantly inundated. And then we live or work in recycled air. A lot of women probably work in sealed buildings. You don't have fresh air. You have recirculated viruses, bacteria, molds, and chemicals. There's a lot of dioxins. Dioxins are the big ones for women. So maybe, I don't know if we've talked about that, but this is your fireplaces, your burning wood, burning forests. dioxins from exhaust from the cars, diesel cars, fireworks. All this contains dioxins, and dioxins have been research studied and proven to reactivate EBV. So fireworks, you probably want to watch it on TV and not be out in the backyard if your neighbor is firing the fireworks if you have a problem. Just so there is this simple tools to kind of see, you walk into a house and you have an ear buzzing and ear pain. Well, it may be Wi-Fi, maybe they have smart meter, or maybe you're sitting next to the router and suddenly you feel worse. So just, we have to be environmentally savvy. I mean, it's a new reality. It's not normal. It's common. We're stewing in it, but it's not normal. So there's this threshold
that is different. I want to mention about the Wi-Fi thing is that just keep in mind that a lot of us are full of heavy metals. So when we're in these Wi-Fi environments, we have all these metals in our body. Those metals actually conduct that radiation, and it points to all the more why it's really important that we're getting the metals out of our body. I don't know if we're going to live in a world where we can escape, even getting out on the brink of town or out in the country. I mean, they're wiring it up everywhere. I mean, the Wi-Fi and stuff, and there's definitely things you can do in your homes, but get those metals out of your body. So important.
And it takes time.
It does take time.
And so we do have amazing capacity. The body has amazing mechanisms. It's just that there's a tipping point at which the body cannot keep up. And then if you have reactivation of the virus, that creates like a mega dose of oxidative stress and free radical damage. So it's like the body's trying to clear that as well. So I think when people start cleaning layer after layer from the immediate environment, the water, the food, just take your one step at a time, you're going to see that you're going to start feeling better on different levels, because you're also making it easier for the internal detox to clear more of the toxins and to keep those heavy metals tucked in somewhere, so they don't do damage. With heavy metals though, that's my professional opinion, personal too, but professional, based on one study so far that we have, is that bone broths are not as safe as we thought, just because not there's something wrong with making a soup like that. It's very healing. However, bones accumulate heavy metals, in particular lead. And so there was a study a number of years ago. It was organic chicken, and they documented how much lead leaked out into the broth. So real bone broth, when you really extract with the acid, extract the nutrients. So potentially, if you subside on daily bone broth, you don't have the control over that lead level. Even if the chicken is organic, we just don't know. We store lead in our bones. If you have osteoporosis, osteopenia, if you start losing bones, maybe because of medications, you're going to start possibly getting more toxic, because the lead will leach from your bones into your bloodstream. So that's another caveat to your concern, getting the heavy metals out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing right now, people in the community know, I'm doing the True Cellular Detox Protocol from Revelation Health, Dr. Dan Pompa's protocol. And I've talked quite a bit to their team of health coaches and nutritionists about their protocol. And one of the things that struck me, and I know that I have heavy metal toxicity. First of all, you guys know I had mercury fillings improperly drilled out from my teeth that went up into my thyroid, or down to my thyroid and up into my brain. Yeah, I didn't know that. Actually, I connected the dots on that a couple of years ago, but I had a mysterious 45-pound weight gain, and why was this happening? But anyway, when it comes to metals, many people are on the True Cellular Detox Protocol for years, 1, 2, 3 years, because their bodies are so toxic. And they actually recommend that even when you're finished with the protocol, that you dedicate a certain number of days every single month to detoxing, because of the constant exposure that we're confronted with. So this metals thing is a big issue. It's really important that you're working with a good practitioner and using a really good protocol, listening to your body as you go through it. I've actually had to take some breaks because the fatigue and brain fog got to be intense as I was detoxing.
Yeah, that's called a healing crisis. Avoid. Yes. too
Yep.
fast.
So, and one of the things I wasn't doing, I wasn't taking enough binders, and that actually made a huge difference for me, is upping my binders a little bit. But anyway, it's a big deal, and it can take a long time for it to come out of your system, but it's a big contributor to all of the reasons why we're feeling like crap. You know, the number one thing that has restored carb sensitivity for those women who have struggled with weight loss resistance like I have, the number one thing that's made it better for me is heavy metal detoxification. And you're also detoxing other things, not just the metals. Your chemicals are coming out, you know, lots of other things are coming out. But this is really, really important. You know, I could spend so much energy going after Epstein-Barr, and I have, or I could get it stable, go after the root cause issues that are
totally.
So this is a super important conversation.
And the beautiful thing is that when you're going after EBV, you actually, my protocol consists of individual nutrients that have a great record in research and then great record in my clinical experience, but they are multitaskers, just like selenium. So when we do NAC, for example, it is antiviral, but it is also supporting your detoxification, supporting making glutathione. So you can detox heavy metals and so on and so forth. It is also a great binder, biofilm binder for H. pylori. So if so, and this goes on and on. So, so suddenly you're becoming invincible and stronger. And so, like you say, you're doing so many layers of different things at the same time. When you do your protocol, it's detox. And we have generational toxins. You may have Agent Orange or DDT in your system, generational. Yes, we call them persistent organic pollutants. They stay in the system and they can be transferred generationally. And so, you know, as a deeper levels, our cells are polluted. But I don't like doom and gloom. We have amazing natural capacities. Just enhance them by providing the best quality of foods that you can afford, getting a good water filter, you know, just huge difference. Huge difference. And a couple of supplements.
So you have a webinar coming up. I want to make sure everyone knows about it. There's so many people in our community that are interested in this Epstein-Barr conversation. It is EBV Solution, 3 Secrets to Healing from Epstein-Barr Virus and Going from Feeling Beyond Broken to Reclaiming Your Life. So if you are watching on Facebook, it's in the status. You can click on the link and go sign up for this free webinar with Kasia. If you're watching on YouTube, it's down in the description. You can click on the link down there and go check out the free webinar as well. So for those of you that have questions, you want to learn more, you feel like this is something that you need to get educated on, I'd really encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to spend some more time with Kasia, ask her your questions, get educated, get the information you need to reclaim your health. So
absolutely, it's going to
awesome.
be awesome. A lot of fun.
I love these conversations with you. I learn so much every time. And I really appreciate your generosity. You've been such a great support for all the women in the Healing Rosie community. I'm always tagging you in comments, and you always come through delivering support to these women. And I know this is a big piece of the puzzle for a lot of us. So thanks for
it's a big piece, and you're part of it. Thank you for your contributions. You have an amazing Rosie community. I love it. I just wish I had more time to look at everybody, what you're doing. I love your protocols.
I want to clone myself.
I love what you're doing with different protocols and how you're paving the grounds and you're sharing with your community and you're teaching women. It's just, we need more empowerment. We can do so much more on our own, really, totally. So don't get intimidated by the virus. It's some of my tribe says it's the best teacher in their lives. It forces you to recognize certain things are not working, certain things need to change in your life, big things. Sometimes your life has to change. It's like
our lifestyles create our decisions.
It's a tap on the shoulder. So don't feel you're defined by it or by the antibodies. Just get educated. So the webinar will be a lot of fun. Awesome. I can't wait to share it. And thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, well, you guys all go get signed up and let me know how it goes. I want to hear all about your learning. And thank you so much, Dr. Kasia Kines. I appreciate you coming and sharing.
Pleasure. Anytime.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Thanks. Bye.